The meeting room was suffocating, the only sound the faint thrum of the station's life support. Admiral Zorn scanned the faces around the table. Their fear was a palpable stench. The Arcturian commander, 3 centuries old, had never witnessed such utter hopelessness. "The Blight has claimed the Rael system," he stated, his voice a gravelly whisper. "That makes 32 systems lost in 2 years. On the vast hollow screen, their territory bled red. Too much red, not enough blue. The red belonged to the enemy now. The Akreth Dominion was eating their worlds one by one. Not consuming, not destroying, but assimilating. Our last counterattack cost 5 ships and yielded no confirmed kills." General Vex, a towering centurion with metallic skin, rumbled. "They adapt too quickly. We can't surprise them." The Galactic Confederation had once been a beacon of pride. 17 diverse species, united, building cities across 1,000 worlds, creating art and science that brought tears to the eyes. But they had not prepared for real war. "Simulations give us 3 months before they reach the central worlds," said Lyra, the small green Thorian who managed their battle computers. "We've run the numbers 10,000 times. We always lose." Admiral Zorn looked at his 4-fingered hands, the blue-gray skin wrinkled with age. He had hoped for a peaceful end, but that seemed like a forgotten dream. "Perhaps we should discuss surrender terms," Ambassador Prell suggested, his eye stalks drooping. General Vex gave a short, humorless bark of a laugh. "The Akreth don't take prisoners. They repurpose everything. Our people will become tools." The Akreth Dominion wasn't a collective mind. It was an ancient empire led by a grand conclave of its most brutal intellects. Their goal wasn't just conquest, but domination through biological and technological assimilation. They didn't just kill, they transformed. "Then we die with honor," Commander Zan of the Dretch Warriors declared, though even her voice sounded weary. The meeting room door hissed open. A young officer stumbled in, breathing hard, uniform askew, eyes wide with a frantic energy. "Admiral, it's transmission. An unknown ship has entered our space. More Akreth scouts?" Admiral Zorn rasped. "No, sir. They say they're from a world called Earth. It's not in our star charts. They're broadcasting on all frequencies, sir. They say they've been monitoring our war. They say they want to help." The council members exchanged confused glances. "A new species now? Help?" General Vex snorted. "What could some unknown species offer that would make any difference?" The young officer swallowed hard. "They say they're soldiers, sir. They say their entire history is war. They've spent thousands of years fighting each other while we built peace." Silence filled the room. Admiral Zorn felt a flicker, not of hope, but cold curiosity. "Put them through," he ordered. "Let's hear what these humans have to say." On the screen, the star map vanished, replaced by a face, pink-skinned, with dense fur on the head and 2 forward-facing eyes. The alien wore a stark, simple uniform with no elaborate markings. "This is Captain Helen Reeves of Earth," the creature stated, its voice flat, devoid of the theatricality common in Confederation diplomacy. "We understand you have a war to win." For the first time in months, Admiral Zorn felt his heart quicken. The human ship docked at the Confederation station. It was small, crude, its hull scarred and crudely repaired, looking less like a vessel of exploration and more like a tool of brutal efficiency. Captain Helen Reeves entered the council chamber with 4 other humans. They wore simple, dark uniforms with small, almost invisible patches. They carried no visible weapons, yet they moved with a predatory alertness, every muscle coiled. The council members stared. They had never seen beings like these. "You are smaller than I expected," Admiral Zorn observed. Captain Reeves offered a thin smile, but her eyes remained cold, calculating. "Size isn't everything, Admiral. Efficiency is. Why would you help us?" General Vex demanded. "What do you want in return?" "Allies," Reeves stated, her voice clipped. "Earth is one planet. We've only recently reached the stars. The galaxy is a vast place, and we prefer strong friends to dead enemies." Ambassador Prell's eye stalks twitched with suspicion. "And you believe you can defeat an enemy we cannot? We possess technology far beyond yours." "Technology isn't your problem," one of the other humans, a tall, dark-skinned man, interjected. "Your problem is how you think about war." Reeves nodded. "This is Major DeCruz, my second in command. He's right. We've studied your battles with the Akreth. You fight like engineers, logical, predictable, by the book. You optimize for minimal collateral damage. We optimize for winning. And how do humans fight? Commander Zan of the Dretch asked, a hint of steel in her tone. Like animals, Reeves said. Like survivors. We cheat, we trick. We do whatever it takes to win. We don't fight to be honorable, we fight to end the fight. The council members shifted uneasily. You've been fighting the Akreth for 2 years, Reeves continued, her gaze sweeping the room, landing briefly on each bewildered face. Humans have been fighting each other for thousands. While you built your perfect society, we were perfecting the art of killing. Prove it, General Vex challenged. Show us what humans can do. Admiral Zorn raised a hand. The training arena. We can run combat simulations there. An hour later, the council watched as 5 human soldiers entered the virtual battlefield. They faced holographic versions of the Confederation's best fighters in terrifying computer models of Akreth assimilated biowarriors. What happened next shocked everyone. The humans didn't fight by any patterns or rules. One feigned injury, drawing enemies into an ambush. Another used the environment itself as a weapon, causing a structural collapse that buried several opponents. They communicated with subtle gestures, moving as a single fluid unit, yet each fought with a distinct, brutal individuality. Most surprising was their speed. Though their bodies seemed ordinary, their reactions were impossibly fast. The aliens would later learn this was fueled by something humans called adrenaline, a chemical their bodies produced in extreme danger. When the simulation ended, all enemies were defeated. The humans had sustained minor injuries but stood, seemingly unfazed. How did you move so quickly? Lyra, the Thorian computer expert, stammered. Your musculature shouldn't allow such velocity. Major DeCruz grinned, a cold, predatory flash. When humans are scared or angry, we get stronger. Evolution's gift. It makes us very efficient. You fight without honor, Commander Zan observed, a note of grim fascination in her voice. We fight to win, Captain Reeves corrected. The Akreth doesn't care about honor. Neither does extinction. Admiral Zorn stood slowly. For the first time in months, he felt a chilling, foreign sensation. Not hope, but ruthless determination. The Council will vote now, he announced. Do we accept Earth's offer of assistance? The vote was unanimous. They had no choice. The war was lost unless these brutal human soldiers could change the tide. As Captain Reeves left the chamber, Admiral Zorn wondered if they had just made a deal with a different kind of monster. A monster that might save them, but would irrevocably change them. This is not how war is fought, General Vex bellowed, slamming his metallic fist on the table. These plans violated all our military rules. Major DeCruz looked at the alien general calmly. That's exactly why they'll work. The Akreth know your rules. They've learned how you fight. And they're adapting those rules against you. 3 days had passed since the humans arrived. Now they sat in the war room of Proxima Station, the Confederation's last major shipyard. Captain Reeves had taken effective command, much to the simmering resentment of some alien officers. On the large display table, a battle plan illuminated the station and nearby space. The human plan was nothing like what the Confederation would have conceived. You want to use our civilian transport ships as decoys? Admiral Zorn asked, his voice laced with disbelief. They have no weapons or strong shields. Precisely, Reeves said, her gaze fixed on the display. The Akreth won't expect them to be threats. But we'll hide our best fighters inside them, with their energy signatures masked. When the Akreth get close enough, she made a sharp, explosive gesture with her hands. Commander Zan of the Dretch studied the plan. Unlike the others, she seemed intrigued, a dangerous glint in her eyes. You would sacrifice the outer defense ring? Those are our strongest positions. They're also the most obvious, Major DeCruz countered. The Akreth will spend too much time and energy destroying them. Meanwhile, we hit them from behind, or from where they least expect us. A tall, thin alien with blue feathers, a diplomat named Thalen, bristled. This is barbaric. You plan to set traps, fake retreats, use civilians as shields. No civilians will be harmed, Reeves cut him off, her voice devoid of warmth. But the Akreth must think they might be. That's the point. Deception is not dishonorable, it's a weapon. Thalen insisted, this is not honorable. Reeves laughed, a harsh, humorless sound. We're not fighting for honor. We're fighting for survival. Honor is a luxury you can only afford when you're winning. Admiral Zorn watched the humans carefully. They were so utterly alien in their methods. They looked soft, without claws or armor, yet there was something deeply dangerous about them. Their eyes, perhaps. They had the eyes of hunters. Your way hasn't worked, DeCruz said, his voice cutting through the tension in the room. For 2 years, you've lost ground. You fight wars like engineers solving equations. We fight wars like predators hunting prey. Silence fell. Even General Vex couldn't argue with the brutal truth. Their way was failing. Tell me this, Admiral Zorn finally said, his voice quiet. If we follow your plan and win this battle, what then? The Akreth is vast. We cannot trick them forever. Captain Reeves nodded. You're right. That's why this is just the beginning. More human ships are coming. 3,000 of our best soldiers. We've also sent messages to Earth requesting special forces. The ones who know how to truly break an enemy. Only 3,000? Lyra, the Thorian computer expert, queried. The Akreth has millions. Quality over quantity, DeCruz said with a small, chilling smile. One human special forces soldier is worth 100 regular troops. Or 1,000. What makes them so special? Commander Zan asked, her curiosity overriding her usual stoicism. Reeves and DeCruz exchanged a look, as if weighing how much to reveal. They're trained to think like the enemy, Reeves finally said, her voice dropping to a low, intense tone. To become the enemy in their minds. To find weaknesses no one else can see. To exploit every terror, every insecurity. They are fear incarnate. A chill went through the room. The aliens couldn't imagine wanting to think like the Akreth. Admiral Zorn looked at Reeves. Do we have your permission to proceed with our plan? The old Arcturian looked at the battle display again. The human plan was risky, deceptive, and went against everything the Confederation believed about proper warfare. It was also their only hope. Permission granted, he said quietly. May the stars help us all. They're coming, Lyra exclaimed, her green hands a blur over the control panel. Akreth ships in the system. More than expected. Admiral Zorn stared at the screen. Hundreds of enemy vessels approached Proxima Station, the largest Akreth fleet they had ever seen. They know this is our last major shipyard, he said quietly. They want to end this war today. They want to assimilate us into their living factories. Captain Reeves stood calmly in the command center. Good, let them come. The alien officers looked at her in shock. Even after days of working with humans, they still couldn't fathom how these strange beings could face such overwhelming odds with such cold composure. Begin evacuation procedures, Reeves ordered. Make it obvious. I want the Akreth to see our people running scared. Make them believe their own superiority. But our people are scared, Commander Zahn noted, a touch of morbid irony in her voice. Major DeCruz offered a chilling smile. Then they'll give a very convincing performance. The plan unfolded. Transport ships fled from the station, broadcasting distress calls. The outer defense ring fired its weapons, but deliberately missed most targets, or aimed at non-critical areas. To the Akreth, it looked like sheer panic and abysmal marksmanship. The Akreth vessels moved exactly as Reeves had predicted. They ignored the fleeing transports, focusing their full, overwhelming force on the defense ring. They're taking the bait, DeCruz said, watching the tactical display. Time for Phase 2. Hidden among the asteroids near Proxima Station, human ships waited in absolute silence. They were small, ugly, but retrofitted with special equipment the Confederation had never even conceived of for warfare. Now, Reeves ordered, her voice cutting through the comms. The human ships activated electronic warfare systems. The Akreth fleet, previously a perfectly coordinated organism, suddenly lost contact with vast sections of its hive intelligence. Confusion spread through their ranks as individual ships, now isolated, fired erratically, some even at their own kind. Phase 3, Reeves continued, her voice steady. The supposedly empty transport ships that had fled earlier now reversed course. From inside them emerged Confederation fighter ships, their energy signatures masked until this moment. They attacked the confused Akreth ships from behind, striking at their newly vulnerable communication nodes, the parts that connected them to the Grand Conclave. At the same time, the humans detonated hidden charges placed in the asteroid field. The explosions created a cloud of radioactive debris that blinded the Akreth advanced sensors. They can't see. They can't coordinate. Now hit them with everything, DeCruz roared. The Confederation fleet, which had been hiding on the far side of Proxima's moon, jumped into action. They focused fire on the largest Akreth vessels, specifically targeting the data conduits that funneled intelligence back to the Grand Conclave. On the command center screen, the battle was a chaotic ballet of destruction. Akreth ships moved erratically, some spinning aimlessly, others targeting their own. For the first time, the Akreth Dominion, so confident in its superior intel, was experiencing something new: disorientation. And perhaps a nascent dread. They're retreating, Lyra announced, disbelief coloring her voice. The Akreth are actually retreating. Cheers erupted around the command center. Alien officers hugged each other, some openly weeping with relief. Their first victory in 2 years. Admiral Zorn didn't cheer. He watched Captain Reeves and Major DeCruz, who were already discussing the next battle, their faces devoid of triumph. Only a cold, focused intensity. You did it, he said quietly. You beat them. Reeves looked at him with those cold, predator eyes. No, Admiral, we hurt them. We scared them. This is just the beginning. She pointed to the tactical display. The Akreth has never faced an enemy that fights dirty before. They don't know how to handle it. And they haven't seen what humans are truly capable of yet. We will break their will, DeCruz added, his voice a low growl. Admiral Zorn felt a chilling premonition despite the victory. He wondered what these ruthless humans would do next, and whether the galaxy would ever be the same again. And if the price of salvation was to become as ruthless as the saviors themselves. The human transport ship sliced through the clouds of planet Vega 4. Unlike the earlier human vessels, this one was large, sleek, and new. On its side, a stark black symbol, resembling a stylized skull with a single sharp tooth, was painted. Colonel Marcus Vandal stepped onto the landing pad where Captain Reeves and Admiral Zorn waited. He was tall, even for a human, with a shaved head and a brutal scar running down one side of his face. Behind him came 20 soldiers in black, unadorned uniforms. Each moved with the lean, silent grace of a hunter. Welcome to Proxima Station, Colonel, Captain Reeves said with a clipped salute. Admiral Zorn studied the newcomers. These were the special forces, the ones who would truly break the enemy. These are the disruptors you requested? Yes, sir, Colonel Vandal replied, his voice quiet but intense, like a drawn wire. We specialize in psychological warfare, in tearing down an enemy's will to fight. The Admiral didn't fully grasp what that meant, but something in Vandal's eyes made him not want to ask. 2 weeks had passed since their first victory. More human ships and soldiers had arrived. The war was undeniably changing. The Confederation had reclaimed 3 star systems, but the Akreth were adapting, learning at an alarming rate. In the command center, Major DeCruz showed Colonel Vandal the latest intelligence. The Grand Conclave is evolving, DeCruz explained. They're creating multiple control nodes now, instead of just one central one. They're learning, and they're weaponizing our own strategies against us. Vandal nodded, his expression unreadable. Then we need to hit them harder, not just physically, but mentally. We need to infect their minds. What do you mean? The Admiral asked, a growing unease in his gut. The Akreth is one vast, interconnected intelligence operating through billions of bodies, Vandal explained. That's its strength, but also its weakness. When pieces are violently severed from the main mind, they experience something akin to trauma, existential horror, and we can exploit that. You want to use this trauma as a weapon? Admiral Zorn was genuinely disturbed by the idea. Precisely, Vandal stated, a chilling clarity in his voice. My team will infiltrate Akreth territory. We'll target their communication hubs, but not to destroy them completely. We'll damage them in ways that cause maximum psychological impact. We'll make them feel isolated, confused, and terrified. In the days that followed, the disruptors began their work. They moved through Akreth territory like ghosts, striking in ways the Confederation had never considered. Reports filtered back, Akreth creatures acting strangely, some stopping mid-battle, wandering aimlessly, others attacking their own kind in fits of uncoordinated rage. The Grand Conclave was showing signs of extreme distress. But the biggest change came when human scientists made a terrifying discovery. In a secure lab on Proxima Station, they had been studying captured Akreth specimens. Dr. Sarah Lumina, the lead scientist, presented her findings to the War Council. "We've created a virus," she announced, her voice calm despite the enormity of her words. "It doesn't kill the Akreth creatures, but it severs their connection to the Grand Conclave. It forces them into individuality." Admiral Zorn was aghast. "You're turning them into individuals?" "Yes," Dr. Lumina confirmed. "And the psychological impact on the rest of the collective is devastating. It's like suddenly losing a limb, but worse. It's mental amputation. The Grand Conclave experiences it as a violation of its very being. This wasn't authorized." The Admiral snapped, looking at Captain Reeves. "There are boundaries even in warfare." Reeves met his gaze steadily, unblinking. "Not for humans, Admiral. Not when survival is at stake. When the enemy aims to erase our very essence, boundaries become suggestions." The Council watched videos of infected Akreth creatures. Instead of the coordinated, fearless warriors they had fought for 2 years, these were confused, frightened individuals. Some tried to communicate, emitting garbled, desperate sounds. Some huddled in corners, trembling, their purpose shattered. "This is the key to winning the war," Colonel Vandal declared, his voice a chilling monotone. "Fear. The Akreth has never experienced it before. Now they'll learn the true meaning of terror." Admiral Zorn looked around the room at the humans. Their faces showed no doubt, no moral conflict, just cold, unyielding determination. For the first time, he wondered if saving the Confederation from the Akreth meant replacing one terrifying force with another, equally unsettling one. The Grand Council chamber was filled with a cacophony of shouting. Representatives from all 17 Confederation species argued heatedly, while Admiral Zorn struggled to restore order. "The humans have gone too far," Ambassador Thelen cried, his blue feathers bristling with outrage. "They deployed hunter-killer drones in the Andar system without approval. Civilian areas were affected. They attacked sacred relics." Major DeCruz stood calmly before the council, unflappable. "The drones targeted Akreth infiltrators and their bioweapon caches. We saved millions of lives. At what cost?" the Centurion representative demanded. 23 civilians died, and they desecrated the Great Sepulchre on Kalos Prime. "And if we had done nothing?" DeCruz countered, his voice cutting through the clamor. "The entire planet would be consumed by now. The Akreth doesn't take prisoners. They turn your dead into biofuel." The argument raged. After a month of human involvement, the war had changed dramatically. The Confederation had reclaimed 7 star systems, pushing back the Akreth. But the cost and the methods deeply troubled many. Captain Reeves entered the chamber, interrupting the debate. Her uniform was stained, and she looked utterly exhausted, having just returned from the front lines. "While you argue," she said loudly, her voice cutting like a razor, "the Akreth is adapting. They're creating new defenses against our tactics. We need to escalate our efforts." "Escalate?" Ambassador Thalen looked horrified. "You've already crossed every ethical line we have." "Maybe that's why we're winning," Reeves shot back, her eyes devoid of emotion. A new voice spoke up. Mara, a young diplomat from one of the outer worlds. "Perhaps we should consider negotiating with the Akreth. Now that we've shown strength, they might listen." The human officers looked at her as if she had suggested they should consume their own offspring. "Negotiate?" Major DeCruz shook his head in disbelief. "They're not here to talk. They're here to assimilate. The only language they understand is force. And if you let them speak first, it'll be with a genetic plague." The council fractured into factions. Some supported the humans and their brutally effective methods. Others desperately sought a more peaceful solution now that they had some leverage. Admiral Zorn watched with growing concern. The alliance was fracturing just when they needed unity most. The situation reached its breaking point 3 days later. Colonel Vandal's disruptors executed a daring mission behind enemy lines. They destroyed a major Akreth biofactory, killing millions of unborn Akreth constructs. But in the process, they deliberately caused structural damage to an ancient temple on planet Kalos, a site sacred to many Confederation species for thousands of years. It was a calculated act to send a message to the Akreth. Nowhere is safe. Nothing is sacred. Protests erupted across allied worlds, not just against the Akreth, but against the humans. In his private quarters, Admiral Zorn reviewed reports of the growing unrest. Captain Reeves stood before him, unapologetic as always. "You asked for Ruthless," she said, her voice flat. "This is what Ruthless looks like. We hit them where it hurts, even if it's symbolic. We make them understand absolute consequences." "I asked for help," the Admiral corrected her, his voice weary. "Not for you to tear apart everything we believe in. Not for you to become another tyrant. Beliefs won't save you from extinction," Reeves stated, her gaze unwavering. The old Arturian sighed heavily. "Perhaps not, but what's the point of surviving if we become something we hate in the process? What's the point if we lose our soul?" Reeves had no answer for that. She simply stared, her eyes holding a silent, chilling truth. A soul was a luxury, and they were fighting for survival. Later that night, Admiral Zorn made a difficult decision. He would continue supporting the human military campaign. They were winning, after all. But he also secretly ordered preparations for a contingency plan against their new allies, just in case. At the same time, intelligence officers reported disturbing news. The Akreth was changing its tactics dramatically. Intercepted communications suggested they were preparing something big, a devastating counterattack unlike anything seen before. The true test of the Human Confederation alliance was about to begin, and the Akreth would finally unveil its ultimate weapon of assimilation. "Emergency meeting. Security breach." The urgent message jolted Admiral Zorn from his sleep. When he arrived at the command center, Captain Reeves was already there, looking grim. The screen showed chaos across 3 different star systems. "The Akreth has infiltrated our territories," she explained, her voice tight. "Not with ships, but with spies. With perfect duplicates. Impossible." General Vex boomed. "We would detect Akreth biology instantly." "Not anymore," Major DeCruz countered, pointing to the screen. "They've developed some kind of adaptive biocamouflage. They can look exactly like us now. They can look like anyone." This changed everything. The war had moved beyond battles in space to an invisible enemy that could be anywhere, even among them. Reports flooded in from Confederation worlds. Key leaders were acting strangely, making decisions that made no sense. Some were suddenly pushing for peace talks with the Akreth. Others were ordering military units to abandon strategic positions. "They're targeting our alliance," Reeves said, her jaw tight. "They know it's already fragile. They know our suspicions." Admiral Zorn realized with horror what was happening. "They're replacing our leaders." Within days, the situation worsened exponentially. Captain Reeves tried desperately to warn the Confederation Council, but many members dismissed her claims as human paranoia. They accused humans of creating fear to justify their brutal tactics and their desecration of sacred sites. "Can't you see what's happening?" Reeves shouted at a council meeting, her voice hoarse with frustration. "The Akreth is manipulating you. They're eating you from the inside out." Ambassador Thalen stood up, his feathers perfectly smooth, his eyes unusually still. "Perhaps it is time for the humans to return to their own world. We appreciate your assistance, but we can handle things from here." Captain Reeves noticed something strange about the ambassador. His movements were too perfect, too controlled, not like the emotional Thalen she knew. She leaned close to Admiral Zorn. "That's not Thalen," she whispered. "He's been replaced." Before the Admiral could respond, alarms blared throughout the station. The Akreth had launched a massive coordinated attack on their supply lines. Human forces found themselves isolated, cut off from resources and support. Colonel Vandal's disruptors, operating far from Proxima Station, discovered the full extent of the infiltration. Nearly 1/3 of the Confederation leadership had been replaced by Akreth mimics. But when Vandal tried to report back, he found all communication channels blocked or monitored. The Akreth had compromised their networks. "We can't use official channels," he told his team, his voice flat. "They'll just feed us more lies. We need to take direct action. We prune the rot." The disruptors made a desperate, horrifying decision. Instead of reporting the infiltration, they began eliminating suspected mimics themselves, executing high-ranking Confederation officials without trial or formal accusation. They left behind a single chilling message on each body: "We are the cure." When news of these assassinations, these cold-blooded purges, reached Proxima Station, The fragile alliance collapsed. Human forces were declared enemies. Captain Reeves and her officers were arrested by Confederation security. In her cell, Reeves received a secret visitor. Admiral Zorn slipped in, looking tired and afraid. I believe you, he said quietly, his voice strained. But I may be the only one. The Council has ordered all human forces to leave Confederation space immediately. You are now the greater threat, they say. If we leave, you die, Reeves stated bluntly, without emotion. The Akreth has won. They're just waiting for you to finish the job for them. The Admiral nodded sadly. I know. That's why I'm breaking you out. As they moved through the shadows of the station, Reeves shared her desperate plan. The virus we created to sever Akreth connections. I want to use a modified version on myself. What? The Admiral stopped walking, aghast. That would kill you, or turn you into one of them. Maybe not, Reeves said, her face grim. If it works, I'll be able to experience the Grand Conclave directly. I'll learn their plans, their weaknesses, their deepest fears, if there are any. And if it doesn't work, Zorn pressed, his voice trembling. Reeves smiled, a chilling, resolute expression. Then one human dies to save trillions. Seems fair. We call it calculated sacrifice. Admiral Zorn realized in that moment that human ruthlessness was far more complex than he had understood. It wasn't just about violence. It was about an almost fanatical dedication to a cold calculus of survival. It was about being willing to sacrifice anything, even themselves, for what they deemed the optimal outcome. Captain Helen Reeves lay strapped to a medical table in a hidden lab on Proxima Station. Dr. Sarah Lumina prepared the injection of the modified Akreth virus, while Admiral Zorn watched, his face etched with a fear he rarely showed. This is madness, the Admiral whispered. No one has ever connected to the Akreth mind and survived. They assimilate everything. Humans specialize in doing the impossible, Admiral, Reeves replied calmly, her gaze fixed on the ceiling. Ready when you are, Doctor. Dr. Lumina pushed the needle into Reeves' arm. The captain's body stiffened, then began to shake violently. Her eyes rolled back, showing only white. Her brain activity is off the charts, Dr. Lumina said, her voice strained as she watched the monitors. She's connecting. She's inside. Inside Reeves's mind, something extraordinary and terrifying happened. She could feel the Akreth Grand Conclave, millions of creatures connected in one vast, cold, calculating consciousness. But she remained herself, a tiny, defiant human observer within the collective. And what she discovered changed everything. The Akreth wasn't consuming for pleasure or conquest. They were running from something worse. Something ancient and incomprehensible at the very edge of the galaxy, something that had been chasing them for thousands of years, forcing them to expand, to assimilate, to survive. The Akreth, in their own twisted way, were also predators in flight. With trembling hands, Reeves reached for the communication panel near her bed. Admiral Zorn, moving instinctively, helped her press the buttons, broadcasting on all Confederation channels. This is Captain Helena Reeves, she gasped, her voice raw. I am connected to the Akreth mind. You need to see what I see. Using technology hurriedly adapted by Dr. Lumina, Reeves's experience was transmitted across all Confederation worlds. Everyone who received the signal, alien and human alike, briefly felt what she felt. They saw through the Akreth's collective memory, the endless flight, the horrifying pursuer, the constant fear of annihilation by a truly cosmic horror. The shared experience created a moment of perfect, agonizing clarity. The Confederation species understood, for the first time, the desperate terror driving the Akreth's actions. And the Akreth, through Reeves, experienced human consciousness, the fierce, unyielding determination to protect others, the raw ability to face the most profound fear and still act. It was too alien, too chaotic, too illogical for the Grand Conclave to fully process. It was a poison to their calculated existence. In this moment of shared disorienting truth, Colonel Vandal's disruptors, working with the few uncorrupted Confederation forces, launched a synchronized attack on the primary Akreth nexus points. But instead of destroying them, they used Dr. Lumina's virus to sever and isolate parts of the Grand Conclave, turning the centralized mind into a fragmented, bewildered entity. As the collective fractured into smaller, traumatized groups, Human negotiators, led by Major de Cruz, made contact with the newly individualized Akreth entities. They offered something the Akreth had never considered: cooperation. "We can help you," Major de Cruz told the first Akreth representative to communicate individually, its voice raspy, disoriented. "We can face whatever is chasing you, together, as allies." The war ended not with the destruction of either side, but with something uniquely human: ruthless compassion. The humans established strict, unyielding rules for integrating reformed Akreth entities into galactic society, ensuring their compliance through absolute control, while Confederation idealists provided the understanding needed for healing. They were still feared, but now that fear was a tool for stability. 3 months later, Admiral Zorn stood with Captain Reeves, now recovered, on an observation deck. Below them, former enemies worked together, human overseers ensuring efficiency, to build new defenses against the greater threat approaching from beyond the galaxy. "You came as conquerors," the Admiral said, his voice quiet, "but stayed as saviors. A very terrifying kind of savior." "That's the thing about humans, Admiral," Reeves replied, watching the activity below, her eyes still holding that cold, assessing glint. "Everyone thinks our greatest strength is our capacity for violence, but it's really our ability to adapt. Even to peace, even to making peace with the unthinkable." The Admiral nodded slowly. "What do you think makes humans so ruthless, Captain?" Reeves thought for a moment, then smiled, a hint of something ancient and unyielding in her expression. "We know what it's like to be afraid, to be small in a vast, dangerous universe. But we refuse to let that stop us from living, from building, from conquering our own fear, from connecting, from surviving. That, Admiral, is our real ruthlessness. We never ever give up. We will always find a way."